back to the channel. Today we're going to do a little project with this workbench that I just put together and put in my little hobby room here. It has this ability to put a light up in there, and it came with this bulb. I don't think it's LED, it's some kind of fluorescent type style. And I want to do something a little different. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this 12 volt power supply, and we're going to use these two rods. And we're going to make one of them negative, one of them positive, so we can run bulbs like this, which is a 12 volt bulb. And we can put as many as we want, and we're just going to dangle them from these two poles. And other things we'll be able to do, so we can just tap off of it to do any 12 volt projects that we might have. So let's go to the computer and design a 3D printed bracket that we'll use to hold these equal distance apart, and then to the top of the bench here. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, let's design our bracket to hold the two rods that we have. This is going to be a super simple bracket, nothing fancy whatsoever. So we're going to create a little sketch here. This face here will be where the rods connect. These are 8mm holes with a little bit of margin, so these are actually 8.2. We extrude that out, and then this top piece here, we're going to create a little shelf, and that will be the part that connects to the wood. Let's give it a couple holes so we can put some screws through, and there we go. Let's 3D print it and see if we need to make any changes. Alright, so these printed out perfectly first time. The holes are just a little loose, but we can super glue if we absolutely have to. And so we've got them stationed here. The way we're going to do this is we're going to, one of these sides is going to be extended a little bit, and then we're going to clamp straight onto there. And then the other side will go to the power supply, which I'll mount on the back of the wall. We also have this socket. It's I think it's a G4 socket that the bulbs will connect to. And the first thing I'm going to try is just to cut it a little short and then solder the end so it's a little rigid, and then just hang them from here. If that doesn't, if that works fine, we just may leave it there. Down the road, I may actually 3D print a fixture for these that kind of more secure, but I think that will work. And so I also got those. These are kind of like spotlight bulbs, which would work. And then I also got some of these, which are just ambient, and they produce quite a bit of light, and they're only like 3 watts. These are like 10. So I could put all 10 of these on there, and that's only 100 watts, and the power supply should be able to do 140 or so. So I could put all of these on, and I'll have a good amount of light. So next step, I'm going to go ahead and take some sandpaper and clean up these rods, and then I'm going to mount it, and then wire up the power supply, and then we're going to see where we go from there. Wire up some lamps and place them on there and see what we get. All right, let's stay tuned. Alright, I've sanded these down a good little bit, and just to make sure there's good contact across the entire rod here. We're going to add a little bit of heat shrink on each end, just so we know which one's positive, which one's negative. But also you'll be able to move the lamp wires over these, and that way they can just be on or off, and you don't have to remove them and try to store them somewhere else. So now I'm going to go ahead and mount the brackets, wire up the power supply, and we'll get ready to do our first test. Alright, here we go. Just going to solder these ends before I screw them onto the power supply, just to make them stiff and not fray. Alright, if you're curious about wiring on these things, there's usually a L and an N and usually a neutral signal. This one's got an FG. So black goes to L, white goes to N, and green goes to FG, which is the ground. And so that's how that's wired out. This has 2 outputs for 12 volt negative and positive. I put some push-on connectors just so I didn't have to tear up one of my nice plug-ons, one of my alligator clip ones, and so this makes it kind of temporary, but still pretty solid. So let me wire this up, and then we'll be able to do our first test. All right, we've got it mounted up there. We got the wire stripped and soldered to give them a little bit of rigidity. It can support the weight of the bulb, and if it can support this bulb, the other ones are even lighter, so that shouldn't be a problem. So now all we got to do is connect the power supply, and we can test it for the first time. All right, we've got our wiring complete. If you notice, it's a little bit dark. So let's see if our light works. There we go. Alright, after playing around with the wires a bit, I think a 3D printed bracket made more sense. So I printed this one out, and I'll include it in the description and put it on my Thingiverse. And so that gives us a nice little slide. You can actually move it around a bit, and gives you something to touch because that bulb does get quite a bit warm. And so I think that's going to work out better. I just have holes through those loops that the wire feeds through, and they're just exposed right there, touching the pole. And the last thing we can do with this is we can actually tap off of these bars to give us 12 volts. Just like I have here. If you just take a couple extra alligator clips, and then you just clip on top of there and then run it down to your 12 volt need. I hope you enjoyed the project, and leave us a like, a sub comment, and subscribe if you like. Have a good day.